Straight ahead, we are going to take a deep dive on a major cyber attack. It happened in Ukraine, targeting banks. We don't know for sure if it's Russia, but let's ask an expert why cyber warfare works. Dave, how would you feel if you tried to access your bank account and you just couldn't? It didn't show you any information about your transactions, how much money you had. You just didn't see anything. That's what people in Ukraine are going through or were going through. Yesterday, there was a major cyber attack. Now, we don't know if it's cyber warfare. We don't know if it's Russia. But I want to ask an expert how cyber warfare works to infuse instability in our trust in our nation's economy and put citizens on edge.
How would I feel?
Yeah.
Full panic mode. Full panic mode. If I couldn't access my bank account, if my bank account just showed up zeros, I mean, this is terrifying. And I think sometimes we have kind of an old school view of war.
Okay.
It's a tank.
Okay.
It's a bomb. Cyber warfare is warfare. And in fact, it affects people maybe even more on a personal level. Like you said, it's one thing if there's a tank on a border. It's another thing if all of a sudden I can't buy milk.
That's a great point, Dave. Citizens at the same time were also blasted with weird text alerts. It was spam, but it basically said the ATMs were down. I mean, this could have sparked a run on the banks.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, ATMs are down.
Hoarding,
I can't oh, my goodness.
Emptying shelves.
Again, we don't know if it's Russia or not. Earl Foote of Nexus IT, he's our tech expert we turn to when we've got tech questions that we might not have all the answers to between Dave and I. Good morning, Earl.
Hey, good morning.
We don't know if it's Russia, but this is the timing is sure suspicious.
Yeah. So I think that, based upon the trail of breadcrumbs, everybody is speculating that, these cyber attacks against Ukraine are coming from Russia. The data footprint seems to suggest that as well. With Russia, on the borders and tensions mounting, between those two countries, it certainly seems like what we are beginning to witness. And I'm don't want to be a fearmonger. I don't want to, speculate or over-speculate, but it's pretty easy to draw the conclusions of what we're seeing is the next evolution of warfare, which is, the first wave of attack is cyber warfare to destabilize, populations, to cause pandemonium, to cause confusion. There is Microsoft, the threat analysts at Microsoft who discovered the initial attack last week on Ukraine have confirmed that many of the compromised systems are within Ukrainian infrastructure, potentially water distribution systems, petroleum pipelines, and all those types of infrastructure type, of organizations that, potentially could be shut down. We saw that happen on our own soil with, Colonial Pipeline not quite a year ago, and it would appear that certainly that's probably the tactic that is being carried out here, is trying to destabilize populations so that if Russia chooses to mount a physical attack, that it's probably a much easier scenario for them to take control.
Earl, this is obviously so invasive and hitting really at the root of what is going on in this part of the world. Is there anything that we can do about it? Is there anything that Ukraine can do about it? Is it too late? Can they protect themselves? Because it just seems that they are so vulnerable.
Yeah, according to Microsoft, they have and are issuing patches to address the vulnerability that has been exploited, that has allowed all of these Ukrainian government systems to be breached. This isn't a traditional ransomware. In fact, this is a malware that acts like a ransomware because it says, you need to pay a $10,000 ransom. But when the malware is executed, it actually erases the data on the hard drives rather than just encrypting the data. And so it renders systems completely useless that would have to be rebuilt from the ground up. Microsoft is saying that they have patched, vulnerabilities. The Ukrainian government certainly, and not just them, but business organizations and our own government have to take these threats seriously, be on the proactive, and it has to be a constant. Literally in today's world, whether it be on the corporate side or on the government side, we're all at cyber warfare at all times, and you have to take the threat real, and you have to take all of the necessary measures in order to try and protect whatever entity you're involved with.
Yeah, and Earl, I was going to point out, these weren't just like, banks with one or two branches. These were two major banks in Ukraine, and you would hope if you were banking with a major institution that they would not be at risk for something like this, but apparently they are.
Yeah, it's becoming such a difficult thing to defend against, honestly, and particularly there are nation states that have nation state sponsored hacking groups that honestly are evolving at a pace that is becoming challenging for the rest of the world, and particularly the private sector, to keep up with. While cybersecurity firms and organizations with robust cybersecurity practices can take literally, and follow all the best practices necessary to try and protect an organization, it does not make you 100% impervious. It's a matter of being hyper vigilant, particularly in today's world, utilizing what are called security operations centers that are monitoring, for malicious behavior or traffic 24/7, 365 is becoming a necessity, because the question is less of a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and you need to be proactive and be able to identify that threat early on so you can neutralize it and recover from wherever you're at.
Earl Foote, thank you for joining us with Nexus IT, our tech expert. Thank you so much for joining us.